Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by White House reporter Katherine Doyle. Katherine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, long warned about, long rumored, it's now a reality. What are the challenges President Biden faces as he tries to respond to this Russian aggression?
President Biden has a limited set of tools to deal with this. He's telegraphed for a while now that they plan to levy pretty important sanctions on Russia if they invaded Ukraine, which has happened. And whether or not that has the means to stop Russia at this point is unclear. It doesn't appear so. And the president has levied new, more fierce, stronger sanctions.
So the president has tried to sort of have a strong response, talking about the economic costs he can inflict on the Russian regime and the degree to which he can unite our allies, particularly our NATO allies. But there were some sort of off messages maybe during the question and answer series after he announced the new sanctions. Talk a little bit about some of the things that he said that raised some eyebrows.
Well, he said that he didn't think that sanctions were ever going to stop Putin, and that reflects some reporting that others have detailed about how the prospect of sanctions, while that's a tool that the White House has been trying to use, isn't necessarily something that is going to have much of an effect on Putin. And Biden coming out and saying that today was somewhat in conflict with what the White House has been saying and what he has been saying and what Kamala Harris said over the weekend about sanctions really being their biggest tool to deter an invasion.
Because the public argument had always been that there was a deterrent effect that they were expecting from these sanctions.
And now they're hoping that now that the invasion has begun, that they can maybe have some effect, and that Biden is arguing that effect will come over time. It's not going to be immediate. So now they're sort of moving into a different argument over the role that sanctions will play in the conflict.
Now, you were in Munich when Vice President Harris was sort of leading our delegation to the conference there, where a lot of these issues were being discussed. How did her performance go? How was she perceived as performing, and how did that conference in general go?
She gave a big address on Saturday that was something that a lot of people had been waiting for, and in it she really talked about the unity amongst NATO allies and how they were prepared to deter Russian aggression through things like sanctions and through other measures. Later that day, she met with President Zelensky of Ukraine, and what was pretty striking is in his own remarks in a panel following that, or in an address following that, is how he came out against the U.S. and allies for really adopting what he called a policy of appeasement towards Russia that had allowed the conflict to escalate to the point that it had over the weekend and had led really to what we're seeing this week.
What was Harris's role at the conference? Did she play more of a diplomatic role, or did Secretary of State Antony Blinken seem to play a larger role there? Where did you see that shaking out?
She was really, she was representing the U.S. delegation, and it seemed like she was there to burnish her foreign policy credentials, to give herself more credibility on the world stage, and to also present the top lines of what the U.S. has argued in their strategy to counter Putin. Antony Blinken, while he held some panels, played more of a behind-the-scenes role in meeting with other officials. Her bilaterals weren't as detailed in the discussions that came out of them, and his played a much lower profile role.
So there are obviously going to be a lot more of these types of meetings, given that they're going to try to at least fortify allies against what's going on in Ukraine.
I would expect so.
Thank you, Katherine. You can read Katherine and the rest of our political team's coverage at WashingtonExaminer.com.